There it is. Okay, excellent. So we're going to go through these questions. There will be some. There will be some Bible verses for you to read, and I'll read some of them. You'll read some of them. So please volunteer both to read and to get the answers to what we've read. So we're going to begin with John 21, 20, and verses 20 and 24. So John 21, the last chapter of John, so just before Acts. And anybody willing to read verses 20 and 24? Thank you.
Jesus returned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them, the one who also had leaned back against him during the supper and had said, Lord, who is that is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about this man?
Okay, so that's 21, and then what does 24 say?
This is the disciple who is bearing witness about these things, and who has written these things, and we know that his testimony.
Now, there's something I should tell you that's very interesting about John's Gospel. John never refers to himself by name in the Gospel. Generally, when he refers to himself, he either says, and another disciple, or he says, the disciple whom Jesus loved. But something made John feel even more beloved by God, maybe than even the others. So we're going to try and figure out, how do we know this is John? If he's never going to name himself, then how do we figure out who he is? So this is where we begin in these two verses. So take a look at that first question. And it says, according to these verses, who clearly wrote this gospel? Yeah. Well, but it doesn't say John. Who does it say did write the gospel? The disciple whom Jesus loved. Clearly, whoever the disciple whom Jesus loved is, it is the disciple whom Jesus loved that wrote this gospel. Now we're going to embark on trying to figure out who is that disciple whom Jesus loved. Now, obviously it's John, but we're going to do that using Scripture. We're going to figure out that conclusion. So first we're going to go away from John's gospel, because those other gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, do name John. So let's find out something about that. So according to Luke 6, verses 14 through 16, who were the disciples? So we're going to list all the disciples listed in that passage. So I'm going to read it and give you time to write down the names of the disciples as we walk through it. I think that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So Luke 6. And I'm going to read 14 through 6. By the way, I haven't told you about my Bible. We'll do this and then I'll tell you about my Bible. So beginning at verse 14, it says this. I'm going to read 13. And when the day came, he called his disciples and chose from them 12, whom he named apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter. So you can put Simon/Peter or Simon Peter, but they're the same guy. His given name was Simon. Jesus renamed him Peter. So the first one is Simon, named Peter. Jesus named him that. and Andrew, his brother. So Andrew, and James and John. James and John. They also were brothers. And Philip and Bartholomew. Write those down. And Matthew and Thomas. And James the son of Alphaeus. And put James the son of Alphaeus because that needs to distinguish that James from the earlier James, who's the brother of John. And then Simon, who was called the Zealot. So Simon the Zealot, but he was very zealous for his faith, I think. So that's a second Simon. So that's why there's Simon Peter, and there's Simon the Zealot, and Judas, the son of James. Right, Judas, the son of James, because they're two Judases. And Judas Iscariot. So Simon Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, Simon, Judas, and Judas Iscariot. So the author of this gospel that we're reading is one of those men. Now, let me tell you real fast about my Bible. When I became the Bible teacher here at Cornerstone, I knew that I wanted my own. I have a Bible like this, although it's not large print. This one's at home. I knew I wanted one at school because I knew if I was bringing my Bible back and forth every day that there would be days that I would forget it at home and there would be days that I forgot it at school, and I need my Bible every day. So, but they're really expensive, especially if you're going to get the large print version. It's really expensive. But you know what? I had to buy one, so I went online to this Christian Book Distributors website, and I found one that was like really cheap, and it said it may have some anomalies with the cover. I was like, I can deal with a cover that has anomalies. Now these aren't the anomalies. This is wear and tear, right? So I got the Bible and I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, I don't see anything that really is what's that? And I realized that somebody had bought this Bible or bought it as a gift for someone and had that person's name put on here, and they've kind of just whited it out. But you can still see the name beneath there. So this Bible originally belonged to Sis Peaches. And I'm very grateful that Sis Peaches gave up the Bible. I sure hope she loves Jesus. I hope she didn't give it up because she doesn't love Jesus, but I'm anxious to meet Sis Peaches in heaven because she gave me the Bible that meant I could afford one. I think that Sis Peaches is probably the member of an African-American church. My brother-in-law and my sister, who are very, very white. My brother-in-law is the senior pastor of a black church in Sherman, Texas. And if you go there, you know you have worship Jesus. And they call each other sis and brother, sister. She's called Sister Stell, he's called Brother Stell. So, yeah, I don't know who Sis Peaches is, but I've got her Bible. I'm happy to have it. So let's move on. So it says, read the following verses and write the names of the disciples who could not have written this gospel because they are named in John. So we've written down all the disciples who are named in the other gospels, but now anyone who is named in John is not the author, because the author never names himself. Does that make sense? Okay, so I need the next person to read John 1, verse 40. Who's willing to read that? Thank you, Janelle.
John 1:40, right?
Mhm.
One of the two who had heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon.
So, so Andrew, and then who was the brother of Simon Peter. Okay, so Andrew, Peter's brother, the first one. Now someone read John 1:41. Bill, can you read John 1:41, please?
He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ.
Right. So Andrew finds his brother Simon and says, "We've found the Christ." So we've got Andrew, who's Peter's brother, Simon Peter's brother, and then he goes and gets his brother, Simon Peter, right? Can't be the author of this book because he's named. And then John 1:43. Who wants to read that? Riley, will you read that for us?
The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me."
Okay, so then we have Philip. Andrew, will you read verse 45, please?
Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph."
Okay, so Philip found Nathanael, right? Now, Nathanael is sometimes referred to as Bartholomew. So you can write a / Bartholomew there. Nathaniel, Bartholomew. A lot of people had two names. Why was that? Oh, having multiple names? Well, it's different for different situations. Some of them got new names from Jesus, but some of them, you know how some people go by their middle name, but they have a full real name? He wasn't my real uncle, but he was my real uncle. His name was William Preston Reed. Some people called him Bill. Some people called him Billy. Most people called him Spider. Because when he got to everybody at West Point had a nickname. And he was 6'6", skinny, and had jet black hair and dark eyes. And so he got the nickname. He was all arms and legs. And we called him Uncle Spider. I mean, so, but his given name was actually William. But very few people called him that, right? So yeah, people had different names. Okay, let's go to you, Genoa, John 6, verses 70 and 71.
Jesus answered them, "Did I not choose you 12, and yet one of you is a devil?" He spoke of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, for he, one of the 12, was meant to be.
Right. So because there's more than one Judas as well in these 12, then write Judas Iscariot there. Obviously, Judas Iscariot could not have written this gospel because he was dead. But it's not Judas Iscariot. And Phil, we'll go back to you, John 11:16.
So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let's also go that we may die with him."
Right. Interesting passage that we'll get to later in the year, but it's hard to tell what he means by that. Is he saying, "Let us go to Jerusalem so we may die with him," or he's like, "Let us go to Jerusalem, great, we'll die with him," right? But that was Thomas. And then John 14:22, right?
Just not this. said to him, Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to them?
Okay, so the other Judas, right? Judas, who was not Iscariot, is also named John. Now, this takes up the majority of the disciples, but now there's only 5 possibilities left. Okay, so what's one possibility that's left? James, John, Matthew. Nope, Mark is not a disciple.
Thomas.
Thomas was listed in 11:16.
Oh,
The other James, the son of Alphaeus, so the second James is one of them. And then the other Simon, that's not Simon. So it's either James, John, the author of this gospel is either James, John, Matthew, James, the son of Alphaeus, or Simon, not It must be one of these, of the 7 disciples in John 21:2. But of those men, 3 mentioned by name we've already eliminated. That leaves 4, 2 of whom are identified as the sons of Zebedee. Who are the 2 sons of Zebedee? Do you know who the 2 sons of Zebedee were? It was James and John. Jesus nicknamed the sons of thunder. Apparently they were very loud. The other 2 are simply called 2 of his disciples. So those 2, James and John, are called 2 of his disciples, which probably means the author is either James or John. Read John 21:2-7. Was the disciple whom Jesus loved one of the 4? So I'm going to read that aloud. It's a little bit longer one. So we're in John 21. John 21. And I'm going to read verses 2-7. I'll start with 1. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, Children, do you have any fish? They answered him, No. He said to them, Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved, therefore, said to Peter, It is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that, he jumped out of the boat. He threw himself into the sea. So here we go, right? They're these disciples that have gone fishing, and we know that it includes the sons of Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana, the sons of Zebedee. Those are the only 2 disciples that are not named in this. So the author has to be one of those 2 disciples, right? But has James already been named? So we have James and John. It says it must be one of the 7 disciples in John 21:2, but those men had 3 were mentioned. So the sons of Zebedee were James and John. So was the disciple whom Jesus loved one of these 4? Yes, he refers to himself as one of the sons of Zebedee, but he also refers to himself as that disciple whom Jesus loved, who was the first to see Jesus on the shore. So this exercise gives you a good idea of who the author of this gospel was. We conclude that John was the author because he is the most likely possibility among the 5 remaining disciples. All of the historical accounts point to John. The most compelling is that Ignatius knew Polycarp, and Polycarp studied under John. Ignatius wrote that Polycarp told him that John had written the gospel. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little quick story. My mother's father, so my grandfather, was a lawyer and a judge in Dodge City. And I know that because my mother told me that. And at one point, he took on a custody case that he argued all the way to the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, and he won. If I told you that was a true story, and understanding or hopefully believing that I am a trustworthy woman, would you believe that? Would you believe that that is true? And it is indeed true. At home, I have the court papers that show that it's true. I was told that by my mother. So we've got my grandfather and what he did, my mother, who told me. That's exactly what we have in the Gospel of John. Polycarp was a disciple of John, probably with John when he was writing the Gospel of John. Polycarp told Ignatius that John wrote the Gospel of John, and Ignatius wrote that down. That's very credible evidence. And what you're going to find as you go through high school is that we have better attestation, better proof that the authors of the New Testament are exactly who they say they are and that they were eyewitnesses or closely linked eyewitnesses than any other ancient writing. So John is the author of the Gospel of John. Okay, we're going to stop there. We'll finish this tomorrow, and pick up here tomorrow, and you can rest, relax a little. Yeah. Well, how much time do we have? It ends. Oh golly, we've got more time than I thought. Let's keep going. Sorry. Based on your reading of the following verses. Oh, I put the wrong glasses on. Based on your reading of the following verses, record the instances in which the author of the gospel refers to himself by stating the event, the circumstances, and what he was doing. So turn to John 1, please. And I'm going to begin at verse 37. And it says this. I'm going to start at 35. Sometimes they don't give very good context. The next day, again John was standing with 2 of his disciples. And this is John the Baptist. And he looked at Jesus as he walked by and said, "Behold the Lamb of God." The 2 disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. Jesus turned and saw them following and said to them, What are you seeking? And they said to him, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come, and you will see." So they came and saw where he was staying, and they stayed with him that day, where it was the 10th hour. One of the 2 who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. So what happened? What's happening here? There's two disciples of John the Baptist, right? And what does John the Baptist say to them? Basically, he says, "Go check out Jesus," right? So they go, and it's Andrew and another person, right, who's not named. So it's Andrew and the author. And Andrew says, "Where are you staying?" And how does Jesus respond? Come and see. Come home with me. And so he goes to their house, and they ended up staying for the night. So Andrew and the author heard Jesus. You want to write that down. Andrew and the author heard Jesus. And they followed him, and they stayed with him. So they heard Jesus, they followed him, and they stayed with him. And the unnamed person is John, so it's James and John. Okay, John 13:23. You want to read John 13:23? Thank you.
One of the disciples who was dining at the table at Jesus' side.
So this is the Last Supper, and the disciple whom Jesus loved is who? John, the author of this gospel, and what's he doing here? Yep, they're at the table. It's kind of weird. It's different. We sit at the table like in a chair, but their tables were low, and there were like these low couches or cushions around the table, and you leaned on your left arm, and you ate with your right hand because your right hand was for cleaning and your left hand was for dirty hand, right? And that's how they ate. So Jesus is reclining, and John, or the disciple whom Jesus loved, is kind of leaning on Jesus as well. So the disciple whom Jesus loved leaned on Jesus at the Last Supper. John 18:15 and 16. Well, yes, that's what you put on there, yeah. The disciple whom Jesus loved leaned on Jesus at the Last Supper. And when you're done with that, you can turn to John 18. And Judah, if you would please read verses 15 and 16, that would be great. Let me give a little context. Jesus has been arrested, and they've taken him away, and John and Peter follow. Everybody else scatters, but John and Peter follow Jesus. So go ahead and read that.
Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known to the high priest. He entered with Jesus in the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl, who kept watch at the door, and brought Peter in.
Okay, so what happened here? Been arrested, and who followed him? So John and who else? Peter. So John and Peter followed Jesus to the house of the high priest. This is what you're writing down. Part of doing this is to kind of give you an idea of my expectation. And in this case, John refers to himself as another disciple, and that other disciple, who is John, went in to the house where they took Jesus. And he was able to do that because he knew the high priest's family. They knew who he was. So Peter and the author followed Jesus to the high priest's house, and when John goes into the house, Peter stays outside.
That one denies Jesus.
Just after that. So we're going to begin John 19, begin on verse 16, and I'm going to read this verses 16 through 27. Oh, no, we're not. We're not. Pick up here tomorrow.